The Mishcon Academy Digital Sessions.
We're here to talk about The Walk, which is a travelling festival of hope and art in support of refugees. I'm here with Juliet Stevenson, not only one of the leading actresses of her generation, but someone who's been at the very heart of the humanitarian response to the refugee crisis for many, many years. Juliet, thank you so much for joining us today. Also on your screen today, I'd like to introduce you to David Land, one of the producers of The Walk, Naomi Webb, another of the producers, and Nizar Zuabi, who is the artistic director of The Walk, who's actually speaking to us today from Jaffa.
So for those listening who don't yet know anything about the project, tell us about it.
So The Walk is a rolling arts festival that will start on the border of Syria, Turkey, in a city called Gaziantep. We'll cross Turkey, Greece, Italy, southern France, Switzerland, bits of Germany, Belgium, back into France, across the Channel, and go all the way to Manchester in England. The Walk is led by a 9-year-old Syrian girl that is created by Handspring Puppet Company. It's a 3.5 meter puppet, and she is our heroine. We're accompanying that girl on the journey to find her mother. Her name is Amal, and she will be leading us through 8,000 kilometers in 60 cities. We're creating a pathway or a cordon of welcome through Europe, following the track of the refugee migration routes. And in each of the cities, we will be creating cultural events. We're engaging with the cultural institutions, we're engaging with the civic society organizations, we're engaging with the humanitarian organizations, with the schools. We're basically, once we get into a community or into a city, most of the city or the community can get involved.
This amazing image of a 9-year-old little girl, where did that decision come from, that it would be a girl, that she should be 9 rather than, how were those decisions made?
The grain of the idea started from a show that Good Chance created after spending time in Calais in the jungle. The two Joes went back to the UK after the jungle was demolished and wrote a play called The Jungle that was produced in the Young Vic. David was one of the producers and Stephen was the director. Mm-hmm. And in that play, there's a young 9-year-old girl called Amal, which doesn't speak a lot and we don't know a lot about her, but she was instrumental in the play. She was really important. And after this play was very successful and did a West End transfer and then went to Broadway and kind of gained a lot of attention, I think the next project for Good Chance was to try and figure out who this Little Amal is. And this started a conversation about tracking back to her roots. We know she's from Homs in Syria, and trying to track her voyage all the way to Calais was what started the idea. Correct me if I'm wrong, I think David then suggested a big walk across the migration routes, and Stephen came up with the idea of having a symbol of Little Amal, and then we approached Handspring Puppet Company to create this marvelous puppet that is our 9-year-old.
So given that there have been a lot of cultural events around the issue of refugees and so on, what do you think makes The Walk completely unique and different from any other cultural event or festival that we've seen or may have experienced so far? What is unique about it, do you think?
What is not unique about it is easier to answer because, of course, the scope of it and the ambitions of it is almost rude. To try and create such a long journey, such a long artistic festival is almost unheard of. I think this will be probably the biggest cultural event of 21. Partly the story of being a refugee, it's also the story of how you are received, welcomed or unwelcomed by host communities. All our conversations with all our partners in very different textures and geographies and languages start from a very simple provocation. This 9-year-old is coming through your city. How would you want to welcome her? What would you like to show her? how would you like to engage in a conversation with her? And this starts a conversation that obviously grows and grows until we design an event that on one level celebrates the local knowledge, the local traditions, the city itself. It also celebrates the cultural aesthetics of the place we're visiting, but it also celebrates Amal and what she brings to the table. This huge feat is also about changing the narrative and thinking about refugees as people in dire circumstances, but people who are full of potential, who have a voice, and celebrating the joy they can bring into our lives, their different knowledges, their different textures, everything they bring with them. And of course, Amal will learn a lot of things along the route from different communities. She's also teaching other communities things she learned. So she's a bridge of experience and knowledge as she walks.
Gathering what she learned from the last place and bringing it to the next place. I love that idea because it seems to highlight the whole concept that actually, refugees coming into our cities and into our communities is not just about what we can do for them, but what they bring to us, and that relationship, which is mutual between what we can offer and what they offer and what we can take from them. And that idea seems so confirmed in this idea of every single city she comes to, there will be a cultural exchange specific to that place and its people and its traditions and its culture and so on.
Over the last 18 months, 2 years, you've been talking and creating and working with a whole variety of different organizations, small and large, across the route. What would be really useful to do is just give us a little bit more detail. And obviously, you can't take us through each and every extraordinary event you've got planned, but can you just give us a little sense of what sort of events you've got organized and planned and prepped for, just in a couple of countries?
In Paris, we are creating a very big refugee camp, if you like, which is an artistic installation where we will create soundscape in each tent with languages and sounds from countries that refugees come from, and also have shadow art and puppetry on the walls of the tent. So as you walk through this refugee camp art installation, outdoor art installation, you can eavesdrop into snippets of lives of families, of images.
I think it's worth saying as well, given the events in Place de République just a couple of days ago, with the refugees taking over that place and the violence by the police, the French police there. This event in Paris does come with the full support of the mayor of Paris, the Maire de Paris, which actually is a very much an artistic response to what is an ongoing crisis within Paris itself.
This event obviously has been designed for many months now, but like always, life imitates art and art imitates life, and I think that what's happening in Paris is very appalling and shocking, but it's all part of the same thing for us. It's the need to give these people voice and dignity, which is so crucial in the way the walk thinks about this.
Little Amal herself has been created, as Nizar said, by the Handspring Puppet Company, who are based in Cape Town, South Africa. They're also the creators of the puppets in War Horse, which you may remember seeing on stage from our friends at the National Theatre. Adrian and Basil are actually not with us today, but they're in their workshop in Cape Town.
I love the idea that these two geniuses have been pulled out of retirement for this project. It's just a sort of measure of just how far-reaching the impact of this project is, that it's persuaded them to come out of retirement to create this little girl. We are now going to meet the executive director of Good Chance, Naomi Webb. Little Amal is an incredibly powerful and emotive figure. As she walks through the towns and the cities along her route, what kind of impact do you hope that she'll make on all those who meet her and see her?
Yeah. As with all of Good Chance's work, since we built that first theatre in the jungle camp 5 years ago, the walk is the biggest and the boldest in scale and ambition in every individual place that we pass through, but also in the whole network of people that we're meeting in all the countries that we're travelling through. And in all of those places, We want to bring people together from so many different backgrounds to share cultural traditions and learn more about each other. That's people seeking asylum and refugees, and of course, local people, and completely cross-cultural and cross-community. So it's all nationalities, all languages, religions, genders, all ages, from 3 to 103. And as Nizar was saying, this is about refocusing attention and awareness raising. And with our deeply embedded work with local partners, we hope to be creating all these connections between people in each place, but also between people in different places in each country, between different countries, between all sorts of different sectors, and also to be talking to an international audience about this. We really want people who are living in situations along these routes to be able to look at Amal and see somebody who's like them in the center stage, who'll be celebrated in such a beautiful and a positive way.
It's true to say, isn't it, that since 2016, the situation for refugees globally has got much worse. It's got even worse. There are now, and I'd like to sort of draw them into our Zoom together, 79.5 million refugees, people who've been forcibly displaced across the world, displaced by persecution, violence, war, starvation, the consequences of climate change, and who have, for many different, a range of reasons, can see no viable future in staying where they are, or whose lives are immediately jeopardized, or who've already lost people dear to them. 40% of that 79.5 are children. Perhaps the difference between now and 2016 is that we have all, in our different ways, experienced isolation. We've all been cut off from our families. We all know what it is now to not have access to families and not be able to reach them or see them or hold them. We have many other resources that has made this time of lockdown and separation more manageable. But nevertheless, we have perhaps a greater empathy now with that gut felt and sentient experience of being separated from loved ones. So we know what it feels like, and it's a great deal worse for people who are countries away from their loved ones and have no way of even knowing whether they're alive or dead, and so on.
We're all here because we believe that with all of those things that are happening to people, that nobody should be forced to risk their life to seek sanctuary. No child should be placed in the hands of a smuggler. They should be on a boat in the Mediterranean or the English Channel or wherever in the world they might be. And I'm sure everyone here has seen the recent tragic news of the deaths on our shores, which just compound the very urgent need for legal and safe routes for people seeking asylum and people trying to join their families here in the UK. And we hope that Amal's journey will show the humanity behind what many people might be reading on the news. And we've also been talking with a lot of our humanitarian partners about education and young people. And the IRC have recently estimated that 50% of refugee girls may not return to school because of COVID-19. And as you were saying, 40% of refugees are children, but only 2% of the humanitarian aid budget goes towards education. And that's why we've set up something called the Amal Fund. And I'd love to introduce David, one of our producers, who's going to tell us a little more about that.
When I think of the future after Little Amal has completed her journey, I think of two things. The first is, I think of the chain, the string of people of goodwill right across from the Turkish-Syrian border, across Turkey, across Europe, all the way to the UK, all the way to Manchester. People who have shared in this experience of welcoming this particular refugee child, and created a memory that will forever keep them part of Little Amal's story. We want to change the way in which refugees are imagined by people who are lucky enough not to be refugees or not yet to be refugees. So often refugees are simply seen as people in dire circumstances, and they are, but they are also people of all ages with potential. They can become engineers, they can become doctors, they can become lawyers and get a job in your company, in Mishcon in the years to come. And the Amal Fund will be one small contribution to trying to make that future a reality.
The international humanitarian organization, as I was referring to, is the International Rescue Committee. Very confident, as we are, of raising significant funds once the walk happens for the Amal Fund. What we do need to do, and I'm going to say this in a slightly more direct way than Nizar, is what we need to do is raise money now for the walk itself, on the expectation that each pound that you give us today will result in £3 for the Amal Fund once the walk starts happening. So we're looking for an amplification, but that amplification can't happen unless we raise money for the walk right now. And I'm going to be really frank with you. What I actually need to do is I have a certain number of targets I've got to reach. And today's target is I need to raise £150,000 by Christmas. We have raised a huge amount of money. And I have to say, we've got immense support from a number of different businesses and foundations, from Bloomberg Philanthropies to Comic Relief, the Gulbenkian, European Cultural Foundation, many individuals. We need more individuals. We're looking for more friends, more step parents, if you like, of Little Amal. And that's what we're talking to you about today. The crisis is real, as you know, as Naomi said. Tens of thousands of people are still dying in the Mediterranean, whether it's over the Aegean or from Libya, or even now in across the Channel. Your help is needed right now. It's urgent. And as we emerge, we can now begin to see perhaps the light at the end of the COVID tunnel with the vaccines coming out. And certainly where I'm speaking from, which is Manhattan, we're beginning to see perhaps a new hope emerging in this country, where international humanitarian law has begun to be respected for the first time for many years. But I just want to, given the very long and distinguished relationship with social justice and education that Mishcon have, I'm just thank you again for having us, for hosting us, and we're very thankful for being here today.
The Mishcon Academy Digital Sessions. To access advice for businesses that is regularly updated, please visit mishcon.com.